Good evening and welcome back to our new segments in Awatni TV. Today, we delve into two significant court cases making headlines. First, we will examine the developments in public prosecutor against Afiza Solihi, followed by an in-depth look at Pendawat Raya against Muhammad Shafi bin Muhammad Abdullah. Stay with us for detailed coverage of these pivotal cases.
The legal issue in the case of public prosecutor against Afiza Sulihi was whether the respondent had knowledge or reason to believe that the funds deposited into and withdrawn from her bank account came from illegal activities, thereby committing an offence under Section 4, Subsection 1, Para A of the Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Financing Act 2001. For this act, we will call it AMLA throughout this presentation. The facts of the case for the first instance, collected from Sessions Court, the respondent, Afiza Bintu Solihi, faced 180 charges under Section 4, Subsection 1, Para A of the AMLA. The predicate offence involved a criminal breach of trust committed by Nuriza Yahya, the prosecution witness 7, hereafter referred to as PW7, a bank teller who withdrew money unlawfully from Bank Simpanan Nasional savings certificates. PW7 transferred the misappropriated funds to an account held by her mother, prosecution witness 5, which will be referred to as PW5, without her knowledge, and subsequently to the respondent's account. PW7 testified that she acted under Afiza's instructions, citing threats through her claims, though her claims were not significantly challenged in cross-examination. Furthermore, the Sessions Court judge found that the predicate offence was proven. However, there was no direct evidence showed that the respondent knew the funds were proceeds from illegal activity. The Sessions Court judge acquitted the respondent on the basis that knowledge or mens rea was not established. Furthermore, the Sessions Court judge found that the predicate. Moving on to the second instance taken from High Court Appeal, the public prosecutor appealed the acquittal, arguing a prima facie case had been established. The High Court soon found that there was sufficient evidence demonstrated the respondent's knowledge or reason to believe the funds were proceeds of unlawful activity. There was large and irregular deposits to the respondent's account and were inconsistent with her declared income. The High Court further submitted that the respondent failed to take reasonable steps to verify the legitimacy of the funds as required under AMLA, the respondent's connection to PW7, and her involvement in transferring funds to compensate BSN's losses further supported her knowledge of the illegality. The High Court concluded that the Session Courts had erred in evaluating the circumstantial evidence and ruled that the prosecution's case was sufficient to require the respondent to enter her defense.
So, for the arguments from the appellant, the prosecution established a prima facie case under Section 4, Subsection 1A of AMLA by proving that, firstly, the respondent received and used the money. PW2, which is a Bank Rakyat officer, stated that there were deposits and withdrawals in the respondent's saving account between September 2012 and February 2013. These transactions took place using Bank Rakyat ATMs, counters, and other bank ATM as well. Their evidence clearly shows that the respondent received and spent the monies in dispute. Secondly, the appellant argues that the monies came from illegal activities. PW1, which is the Bank Rakyat officer, gave comprehensive details of the unlawful nature of the monies. Ergo, PW7 illegally took the monies from BSN Customer Savings Certificate, put the funds into her mother's, which is PW5 account, and then transferred those to the respondent's Bank Rakyat account. Hence, PW1 testified that PW7 used the ATM card connected to PW5 accounts without her knowledge. This is also supported by the fact that the huge amount and irregular nature of the deposits into the respondent's account contradicted her declared income, and it has been established that the money was directly related to the predicate criminal breach of trust committed by PW7. Thirdly, the appellant argued that the respondent failed to take reasonable steps to ascertain the legitimacy of the funds, indicating knowledge or willful bias. The respondent in this case, which is Afiza binti Sulihi, did not take any steps to check where the money in her account was coming from, even though the amounts were much larger than her usual income. Thus, the court in this case found that her inaction amounted to willful blindness or knowledge of the illegal nature of the funds as required under the AMLA.
Now, we will be moving on to the arguments presented by the respondent. The respondent argued that there was no mens rea that the funds received from PW5 and PW7 were proceeds of unlawful activity. The respondent emphasized that the absence of evidence showing that PW7 informed them about the illicit nature of the money, merely proving that the funds were withdrawn from the respondent's bank account, does not establish that respondent was aware of their illegal origin. Additionally, the respondent challenged the validity of the charges, claiming they were defective. The charges failed to specify two things. The first thing is that the account from which the money originated, and the second, which is the source of the money prior to its deposit from PW5 account. The respondent argued that it was insufficient for the charges to simply state that the money deposited into the respondent's account originated from illegal activities. Furthermore, the charges did not demonstrate any involvement of the respondent in the alleged conversion of BSNL customers' savings certificates into PW5's account.
Now, we are going to look into the obiter dicta of the case. What is obiter dicta? Essentially, obiter dicta is judicial comments regarding the judge's extra thoughts and observation of the case, which are not binding like ratio decidendi. Firstly, there is duty to check large transaction. The judge in this case emphasized the need of verifying the validity of big transaction, especially if it does not match their income. Secondly, the importance of objective circumstances. The judge commented that big deposits or withdrawal that do not fit a person's earnings are strong signs that might indicate the money is unlawful, even if there's no direct proof. Now, for the analytical views, we compared the case of Azmi bin Osman against public prosecutor and public prosecutor against Afiza binti Sulihi, as the case of Azmi bin Osman has been referred to by the court. Firstly, knowledge and objective circumstances. The court, in public prosecutor against Afiza binti Sulihi, found that the respondent failure to verify the legitimacy of funds in her account amounted to willful bias. The stark contrast between her transaction and reported income suggested that she either knew or should have known that funds were illicit. Similarly, in Azmi bin Osman against public prosecutor, the Court of Appeal reinforced that under Section 3 of the AMLA, knowledge of illicit activities can be inferred from objective circumstances. The court in this case ruled that the accused could not claim ignorance when unusual transaction occurred in their account, highlighting that the circumstantial evidence is sufficient to establish knowledge. Hence, we believe that both the judgments are consistent with the purpose of AMLA, which seeks to hold individuals accountable for ensuring the legitimacy of their financial transaction. We agree with these interpretations as they effectively uphold the preventative and enforcement goals of AML laws. Secondly, analytical views on the duty of financial institution versus individual responsibility. Both cases highlight the importance of individuals taking responsibility in preventing money laundering. In Azmi bin Osman against public prosecutor, the court emphasized that the individuals cannot solely rely on banks to monitor suspicious activities. Instead, they have a duty to act reasonably and question any unusual transaction in their accounts. This aligns with the goal of AMLA, which seeks to involve all parties in combating illegal financial activities. Similarly, in Public Prosecutor against Afiza binti Sulihi, the appellate court rightly noted that the respondent was responsible for investigating the suspicious deposits in her accounts. However, the Session Court had excessively emphasized the bank's role in detecting and reporting suspicious transactions. While banks do have obligations under the AML laws, over-reliance on them could diminish individual responsibility, particularly for those potentially involved in illegal activities. Therefore, we concur with the decision in both Azmi bin Osman against Public Prosecutor and Public Prosecutor against Afiza binti Sulihi on this matter.
Welcome back to NTV News with me as your host, Syed Azraq bin Zainal Azami. And today we get the breaking news about the case of Public Prosecutor against Muhammad Shafi'i Mat Abdullah in the year of 2023. His first and second charges were offences under Section 4, Subsection 1, Subsection 8 of the Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Financing Act 2001, or also known as the Amlatfa, which was to have engaged in money laundering by receiving proceeds from illegal activities amounting to RM 4.3 million and RM 5.2 million, respectively, through checks belonging to the then Prime Minister Muhammad Najib bin Haji Abdul Razak. The first transaction happened on the 30th of September 2013 at CIMB Bank Berhad, J2 and K1 Taman Tunku, Bukit Tunku, Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur, has involved himself in an act of laundering money by receiving money from illegal sources or illegal activities that amounts to RM 4.3 million through a check made under M Islamic Bank Berhad, owned by the then Prime Minister Muhammad Najib bin Haji Abdul Razak, which was then transferred to the accused's bank account. Following the chronology, the second transaction happened on 17th of February 2014, also at the same location, where the accused also involved himself in an act of money laundering by receiving money from illegal activities amounting this time to RM 5.2 million through a check made under M Islamic Bank Berhad, owned by Muhammad Najib bin Haji Abdul Razak, which was then transferred into the accused's bank account, the same modus operandi as before. For the third charge, on the 3rd of March 2015, at the Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia, the accused have involved himself with the offence of money laundering by making an incorrect statement contrary to Section 113 of the Income Tax Act 1967, specifically subsection 1 of the said section. For the financial year ending on 31st of December 2013, by leaving off the income the accused acquired on the 3rd of September 2013, amounting to RM 4.3 million. While on the fourth charge, on the 29th of June 2015, still at the Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia, the accused involved himself with the offence of money laundering by making an incorrect statement. Similarly, contrary to Section 113, Subsection 1 of the Income Tax Act 1967, the ITA for the financial year ending on 31st of December 2014, by leaving off the income accused acquired on 17th of February 2014, amounting to RM 5.2 million. So moving on to the legal issue in this case, we have two legal issues that we have drafted out. The first issue is whether the accused is liable for the first and second charges under Section 4, Subsection 1, Subsection A of the Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Financing Act 2001 for engaging in money laundering activities by receiving proceeds from illegal activities. For the second legal issue in this case is whether the accused is liable for the third and the fourth charge under Section 4, Subsection 1, Subsection A of the Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorism Financing and Proceeds of Unlawful Activities Act 2001 by being directly involved in transactions involving the proceeds of illegal activities by making an incorrect statement contrary to Section 113 subsection 1 of the Income Tax Act 1967 (ICA).
The judgment in the case of Public Prosecutor and Kuala Damansir Sdn Bhd and others demonstrates a meticulous adherence to legal principles and statutory requirements. For the first two charges, the court carefully evaluated the elements of required to establish an offence under Section 4, Subsection 1, Paragraph A of the Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorism Financing and Proceeds of Unlawful Activities Act 2001 (AMLATFA). This analytical approach highlights the court's commitment to ensuring that criminal liability is only imposed when all essential elements of an offence are proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution successfully established the first element of the offence, namely that the accused received 4.3 million ringgit and 5.2 million ringgit. This finding was supported by clear and uncontroverted evidence including bank statements and witness testimonies. However, the court rightly identified a critical gap in the prosecution's case, the failure to prove that the funds originated from unlawful activity, which is in the second element under Section 4, Subsection 1, Paragraph A. This aspect of the judgment is particularly significant as it underscores the requirement that the funds in question must be linked to a predicate offence listed in the second schedule of AMLATFA. By emphasizing the necessity of this linkage, the court upheld an important principle of anti-money laundering laws. The predicate offence must occur prior to or contemporaneously with the alleged laundering. The prosecution's inability to establish this foundational element made the charges unattainable. The court's reasoning aligns with established legal principles such as those in Azmi Osman and Public Prosecutor and reflects a correct and fair interpretation of the law. Furthermore, the court was correct in rejecting the prosecution's argument that post-receipt failures to report the funds could retroactively establish a predicate offence. This reasoning is consistent with the principle that criminal liability cannot be imposed retrospectively and supports the statutory framework of AMLATFA, which requires clear temporal sequencing of offences. Furthermore, on the third and fourth charges, the court's analysis of the term transaction under Section 4, Subsection 1, Paragraph A is also accurate. The prosecution's attempt to expand the definition of transaction to include the filing of inaccurate tax declarations was properly dismissed. The court rightly held that statutory definitions must be strictly adhered to unless the context clearly requires otherwise. By maintaining this strict interpretation, the court preserved legislative intent and avoided an unreasonable application of the law. The judgment further emphasized that the sums involved, 4.3 million and 5.2 million ringgit, were not proven to be proceeds of unlawful activity, as established in earlier findings. This reinforces the prosecution's failure to substantiate a critical element of the charges. Additionally, the court highlighted the absence of precedent to support the prosecution's novel framing of charges under AMLATFA for tax declaration inaccuracies, further demonstrating the soundness of the judicial reasoning. Overall, the court's decision to dismiss all charges reflects a meticulous and accurate application of the law. By upholding the stringent evidentiary standards required in criminal cases, the judgment reinforces the presumption of innocence and ensures fairness in administration of justice. This case serves as a reminder of the importance of adhering to statutory language, legislative intent, and established legal principles, particularly in complex cases involving allegations of money laundering. The judge's reasoning and ultimate decision were well-founded and exemplify the integrity of the judicial process.